want to run an ultra marathon. Congratulations. That's a very long way. And so you're probably going to want to do some training. And so if that's the case, here's how I train for an ultra marathon. First things first, my name's Luke and I've been racing ultra marathons for the past 7 years. Short, fast ultras, long, slow, tedious ultras, road ultras, track, trail. Now, I'm not a coach, but I do very much enjoy the process of training. But first, what is an ultra marathon? A regular marathon distance is 42 kilometers. And so an ultra marathon is simply anything further than that. My advice here is that if you're new, start small. It's a long way, but regardless of the distance that you've selected, you're gonna need to start training. So I'm gonna assume that if you're interested in training for an ultra marathon, then you already have some degree of running conditioning. If that's not the case, then this is probably not the video for you. You might wanna think about something like a Couch to 5K program, but if you are interested in training for an ultra, then yes, you're gonna need to do some more running. To train well for an ultra marathon, I think there's 4 types of runs that you should incorporate into a training week. The first of which are easy runs. Now this is the bread and butter of your training week. It doesn't have to be long, it's necessarily not hard, and so it should be enjoyable. 2, 3, even 4 of these a week is exactly what you need to be doing. Second type of run that I think you should be incorporating are threshold runs. Now, I myself am guilty of going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out exactly the specific intensity that these should be run at, but I think it's far simpler than that. Head out for at least 1 run a week at moderate intensity. You want to be pushing a little bit, but not too much. Running at an effort that could be sustainable for an hour or 2 is kind of where you want to be, but not running for an hour or 2 at that intensity. Breaking that work up into intervals is a great way to keep fresh, keep the run interesting, and not absolutely destroy yourself. The third type of run that I actually think has its place in training for ultramarathons are VO2 max sessions. Now this is your typical interval work where you're actually trying to go as hard as possible. I usually like to break that down into intervals of 1 to 3 minutes with a bit of recovery in between. These runs hurt. And while you should rarely, if ever, reach this intensity of running during an ultramarathon, is absolutely beneficial to your ultramarathon performance. And finally, long runs. These are what I believe to be the most important run of your week. This is the training run that is most specific to the racing that we're intending to do. Exactly how far that is going to be different for everyone, but I usually try and keep my long runs to 40% of my total weekly volume. And so that leads us to my training volume. I'm not going to sit here and aimlessly prescribe to the internet how much I think you should be running, but what I can do is share how much I run. Now, all of my runs I make public on Strava, which you can check out through the link below. But the short of it is that I run for about 10 to 12 hours most weeks. I think when it comes to trail running, time is the superior metric when it comes to quantifying training volume. Trail running is slow. You're often moving through tricky terrain with lots of elevation, and those things slow you down. And you need to account for that. And that's why I choose to quantify my training with time. Now, 10 to 12 hours is a lot of time to spend running every single week. It's a selfish endeavor that we embark on. But I think it's important to respect what we've signed up for. I have a young family, I run my own business. Life would be full even if I wasn't training for ultramarathons. What that means for me though is I have to work really hard at fitting my training in. Getting up early before work, running on tired legs after work. It's tricky. Now I'm lucky that my partner Sarah also runs ultras, so she gets it. Now I'm not sitting here suggesting that everybody should be training exactly the same way that I do, but I will make the point that I think the ultra distance needs to be respected with some appropriate training. And so that's the nitty-gritty of the running part of how I approach training for ultra marathons. But I've got 3 final tips. I feel like lifting weights in the gym has outsized benefits for ultra running. 9,998, 9,999, 10,000. It doesn't need to be heavy. It doesn't need to be complicated. Your buzzwords are single leg, eccentric, compound movements. Lifting weights makes you strong, and being strong keeps you running for longer. I feel like including a fairly basic strength routine once or twice in my week has made the world of difference to my running. It not only keeps me injury free, but I feel like I notice extra strength in my body, particularly when you start to get tired from running all day. And now I think it would be amiss if I were to have talked about how I train for ultra marathons without talking about nutrition. Now it's important pre and post running to be fueling your body appropriately, particularly if you're starting to move into some fairly decent training volumes. Making sure you're eating enough food is so important. Now I don't ascribe to any particular diet or way of eating, but I always try and eat enough food and I try and eat good food. Doing those 2 things well is going to give you the necessary fuel to do the necessary training to do an ultra marathon. Full disclosure, I get some support from Precision Fuel and Hydration. Absolutely love their products and I think everybody should be using them, but I also understand that everybody's different. What I do know though is that if you're going to run an ultra marathon, you're going to need to eat during the process. So whatever the food or the particular gel or drink mix that you think you're going to use, I suggest trialing that during training. The more you can do so, the more it's going to feel good during the race and the better off you're going to be. It's often said that ultra marathon running is an eating competition, and the more I do this, the more I'm on board with that philosophy. And my final tip, my final piece of training advice to successfully complete an ultra marathon is to enjoy it. Enjoy the training, enjoy the process, enjoy the race. If you're eyeing off the podium or simply looking to complete an ultra marathon, I think enjoying the process is important. Running is a beautiful sport and I highly recommend it. If you're embarking on your very first ultra marathon, good luck. Hopefully this was helpful. If you've done it before and you're an expert, then hook me up with the secrets because I still feel like I've got a lot to learn. Thanks for sticking around if you made it this far. Hopefully this was interesting. And yeah, catch you guys in the next one.